Okay.
Okay.
There we go. All right, welcome everybody. It's time to do our 16th session. There are 2 more after this, and we're going to try to get through at least 2 more sessions, and or at least 2 more talks today, maybe 3. We'll see what happens. So Ward, go ahead and share, and it's all yours.
Let me see here. Got it?
Yep.
Okay. So we can go roaring through the plains and make an experiment, a scientific experiment about what Baba said. If you go around the 4th plane too fast, you fall off and crash. So we can go through these lectures really fast and see if we crash. Let's see. Farishte, I was thinking it would be good if we just started by reading this indented paragraph just to remind people of the 7 skies. And since you are a Persian speaker, you might be a good person to do that, if you could.
So read the list.
Yeah.
The Persian names for the 7 skies or asamans are as below.
Well, can you highlight it, zoom in?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot. There we go.
There.
Okay. The first sky or asaman is called Alame Waqtiya, the world of the moment. The second sky or asaman is called Alame Ruhani, the world of spirits. The third sky or asaman is called the Alame Quds, the pure world. And the 4th sky or asaman is called Alame Mahfuz, the protected world. The 5th sky or asaman is called Alame Asrar, the world of secrets. The 6th sky or asaman is called the Alame Janan, the world of the beloved. The 7th sky or asaman is called Arshe Mola, the throne of Allah.
Okay, thank you. And here is the actual diagram. We maybe can flash back and look at it from time to time, but you'll really need to have the book. This, of course, was Nadia and I created this, but it contains information over these next 4 lectures. It's a good roadmap to the next few lectures.
We know what I did send out those.
Yeah.
Bridges attached
So
to the.
you guys will have that, yeah.
Should have that.
I don't know if you have some way on your screen of keeping that up, it might be interesting. Yeah, no, that's an important diagram. Okay, we have a first reader. We start with this last paragraph. Now the first sky.
Go ahead, Sam.
Now the first sky, or Asman, has 3 divisions, A, B, and C, as depicted in figure 36 and further described below.
So there you can see it in the figure, division A, B, and C. Okay, we've read the key. So here's the description of them.
A, the first part of the first sky retains its connection with the outer world. That is, when one who lives in that world gets turned, he sees the first part of this sky. This same sky is what you see in your dreams. That which you see in your dreams, the man who has been turned sees in the awake state. In short, as against the ordinary dream state of the ordinary person, the man in the first part of the first sky sees dreams in the awake state.
Jagrut halat ma svapna. In the awake state, dreams. That's what that means.
B, in the second part of the first sky, one sees light globes. If the spiritual pilgrim has been turned by his guru, in that light globe, he sees the real form of the guru, Guru Svarup. But those who have turned without the Guru's help see the light globe only. But what kind of light appears to them? The light of the light globe is colorless and dazzling. That is why those traveling without a guru stop here. Also, the spiritual pilgrim hears the Anand Nad, an unimaginably wonderful nad or sound, such as we could have no idea of. The third division of the first sky, for all practical purposes, can be thought of as the first sky proper, of which divisions A and B are, as it were, the outskirts. Here the spiritual traveler acquires the power of reading the minds of others. Also, he can see things far off. But remember this, whose minds can he read? Only of those who are in the ordinary gross world. And among these, those who are physically near to him. This advancing soul in the third division of the first sky cannot even read the mind of a man in the first or second part of that same sky. And though he can see long distances, this sight extends to the gross world only. And with this, we are finished with the first sky. The second plane, like the first, has divisions, but now there are only two, as shown in figure 36 on page 253. Now, just as Shri was beginning to broach this subject, a rain shower, or just the first few drops of one, disturbed the lecture. And as the boys were outside in the open, they were ordered to go in under cover. But the moment...
Yeah, I want to read that note now.
Oh, yes. By late December in the Deccan Plateau, the dry season, which begins in October and runs through June, is well advanced. Any rainfall at this time is unusual. So they were ordered to go in under cover. But the moment they began to do this, the shower stopped, much to the surprise of all, and the boys were called back. This gave occasion for the passing off of a witty remark, as Shri commented that the very sky has been shedding tears for love. That is, for the love of Shri. Resuming with his discourse, Shri explained, I'll try to read a little slower. The sky associated with the second plane, as we say, has two parts, known as heaven, Svarg, and hell, Nark. Now, those who die bring with them their sanskaras, good and bad. If the good exceed the bad, one goes to heaven. And if the bad outweigh the good, then one goes to hell. For wrapping up the heaven and hell experience and returning to the world again, a certain relative proportion of good and bad sanskaras has been fixed. If at death, the good and bad sanskaras equal each other, and this never happens, one has to take birth again at once. But if the good predominate, off to heaven does he go. And after experiencing and enjoying the additional excess good sanskaras, he takes rebirth. Similarly, if the bad sanskaras predominate over the good, he experiences a sojourn in hell. And after experiencing and finishing off the surplus bad sanskaras, he too is reborn. The one who descends from heaven wins a good birth. while bad rebirth becomes the lot of one returning from hell. As we say, a certain proportion of good and bad sanskaras has been determined for taking birth again. But there is always an imbalance of good or bad sanskaras, one way or the other. And the surfeit has to be experienced and burned off before one arrives at the fixed proportion requisite for taking rebirth. Now, bear 2 points in mind. First, here in the second sky, in heaven or hell, one has a subtle body. But, and this is the second point, without the gross form, you can't realize God. So necessarily, you have to come back to the gross world to assume another gross body. While in heaven, one only enjoys bliss, but cannot see God. But what an enjoyment! It beggars description. And by the same token, the suffering one undergoes in hell cannot be told in words. So then, let us pause for a moment and reflect on the enjoyment of heaven. In that state, whatever one desires, one gets, but the experience varies according to one's sanskaras. Suppose one was fond of singing during one's life in this world. In heaven after death, if he desires singing, he hears it, but singing of real quality. So too, with regard to meals and food and drink, if he wishes to eat malida,
Yeah, I'm
a
gonna read that now.
A Zoroastrian sweetmeat, malida or malido, is often made by Zoroastrian priests and used in association with ceremonial prayers for the deceased on the 4th day. So if he wishes to eat malida, he enjoys malida such as he has never tasted before. If drink is what he wants, the drink he gets is surpassingly delicious. But the fun of it all is that the desires that arise do so according to the sanskaras he has acquired. That is, in accordance with the special tastes he cultivated during his past life. Now, in hell, the case is quite the opposite. If he desires sweetmeats, instead he gets quite the opposite: refuse, narc, excrement. And likewise, with respect to the other things he wants, the acuteness and severity of the sufferings he has to undergo defy description. But remember one important point: the experiences of both heaven and hell, svarg, ane nark, are nothing but dreams. Just as after you fall asleep, a dream comes, and in the dream you experience good and bad events, such as a motor car ride that brings you pleasure until all of a sudden you find yourself confronted with a terrifying giant. But then upon awakening, you know that it was all just a dream. In just the same way, in realization, you know that all this that you have experienced was a dream. But remember too, that as long as one is sleeping, the dream is real. So be done with it. Even the pleasures of heaven, kick it all out. Svargala lat mara. Why? Because it's nothing but a dream. But this gross world around you is a dream as well. It is only through the dream that the chance comes to you to awaken in true realization. Do you want to read that?
Svapnama ti jagrut tavani halat a dunyama che. And that's literally translated in this phrase following.
The conditions for awakening from this dream are in this world itself. Now, the pilgrim who has ascended to the second plane through spiritual advancement, as against those who experience the heaven and hell states after their physical deaths, he too necessarily sees these two parts of that sky, heaven and hell. But the difference is that he takes experience of heaven and hell while still in the gross body, as contrasted with the ordinary human being after death, who does so through the subtle body. Indeed, the state of the second plane pilgrim contrasts even with that of an advanced pilgrim in the second sky. Thus, the second plane pilgrim I see a request to reread the last sentence.
Keep going, Sam.
Thus, the second plane pilgrim experiences heaven and hell even while living in the gross body.
Jivta jagta svarg yanark no anubhav lai shakeche.
While
that-
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. And so this is a literal translation that follows.
While alive and awake, he is able to take experience of heaven or hell. So much for the first and second skies. The subject of the remaining dream states will be taken up tomorrow. In the meantime, remember only this much, that all this is a dream. Only God is real, and God is love. Hence, create, L-O-V-E, love.
Thank you, Sam. I was going to switch readers, but I didn't want to take away that last line from you.
So
Okay.
here's what we are just looking at. You can see this dotted line here is to indicate that gross conscious souls have this experience. So from the outer world, their bad actions lead them to the experience of narc or hell, and good actions through good sanskaras lead them to the experience of svarg or heaven. Of course, gross conscious people don't experience the second plane in its own right. They just experience their own subjective projection of it. Whereas, as Baba was just saying, people on the second plane or in the second sky are there in their gross bodies, and they're fully conscious of it, and they're not trapped in the delusion of heaven and hell as our people experience this after death. So after death, this is where people go, second plane. Okay.
So we're going to have Melissa read, and we're on a new one.
Mm-hmm.
The skies. Yesterday, we said that Svarg and Nark
heaven and hell, both of them are dreams. Now, a pilgrim on the second plane sees heaven and hell and can experience them even while in his gross body. If he does not have a Sadguru guiding his progress, he enjoys them, heaven in particular, since no one can go to hell voluntarily, and in consequence he stops at this state without proceeding further in the planes, marg. In this way, the powers of seeing heaven and hell prove a check for him in his advancement. But if he has a Sadguru, the Sadguru allows him only to see with his eyes. He doesn't permit the Sadak, as a desirer, to experience and enjoy what he sees.
Upabog leva deto nati, which means he does not allow you to take enjoyment. Gujarati phrase.
Now turning to the third sky, here again, as in the case of the first sky, we find three divisions, as depicted in figure 36 earlier. Their designations are, do you like to read those words?
Sure. Indrapad, or Makam Ehuri, the office of Indra, or the station of the Huris. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Huris. That word found its way into English. B, Makam Kudsi, the station of purity, and Antargyan, inner knowledge. By the way, Indrapad is a Hindu term, and Makam Huri is an Islamic. And let's just go back and take another look at this figure just as a representation of what we're looking at. It's this one right here. So these are the three subdivisions. Indrapad, or Makam Huri, the station of the Huris. Makam is a station. This is a standard Sufi term. They usually talk about 7 makams on the path to God. Mecham Hudsi is purity. It's one of the 99 names of God, station of purity, Islamic phrase. And Antargyan is a Hindu term. Antar is inner, and Gyan means knowledge. And then he gives an Islamic equivalent, Khud Shanaz, knowing, self-knowing. Okay, back to our righty. Here.
But remember, people of the world, when they leave their bodies, go either to Svarg or Nark, heaven or hell, according to their sanskaras. And after experiencing their pap or punya, vice or virtue, as the case may be,
Papane punya no upabog laine. Pap and punya, taking experience of their upabog is the word for experience, of their sin and virtue. That's pap and punya.
they return to the world again. Such persons after death can ascend only to the second sky for the heaven or hell experience, and no farther. And yet there is an exception, apavad, to this rule. Those few who practice special top chop, and my eyes aren't really up to reading.
Yeah, riyazat.
And riyazat. That is to say, abstinence, meditation, concentration, etc., for the attainment of this state of the third plane. Such persons, after leaving their body, go to the first part of the third sky. This first part of the third sky, as we say, bears the designation of Indrapad, or the station of Indra. Naturally, they make their way into this sky in their subtle bodies, not in the gross body. Here they remain for one entire cycle of yugas, a vast expanse of years, and then return to the world where they have to take birth again.
Pacho janma levo padeche. He has to take birth again.
Here in Indrapad, the bliss, Anand, is millions of times more intense than that experienced in Svarg, heaven. But when at last one attains to the goal, which is realization, even this exalted station appears as a dream to him. Fact. Now, the advanced pilgrim on the third plane can see and experience all three parts of the third plane. That is, the three subdivisions of this sky, even while inhabiting and incarnate in a gross body. For those who venture without a guru, the third plane and its associated sky constitute a more dangerous ground even than did the second plane, for the chances of a fall are greater. The one traveling with a guru, of course, incurs no such risk, since the guru would not allow him to actually experience these planes and their paraphernalia, but merely to see them. What comes next?
I think I put a note saying, here is in the first sentence in the next paragraph. Baba was probably pointing to a diagram. We're guessing that one of these earlier diagrams had been drawn on a board and was left up there for several days.
We have reached the second part of the third sky, which bears the Persian name Nukam-i Kudsi. In this sky, or Asman, abide celestial souls, divine spirits. They have subtle bodies, but never take gross form. They are also known as angels, and their abode as, help me.
We should get help from the Farishta in attendance, but Farishta Devlak. We have a Farishta here
Yes.
who is named after this. Want to read the note? Can you read that? Is it
Yes,
too small?
Farishta means angels, originally in Persian and Urdu. Devlok means divine place, or place of the gods. The phrase is a striking one, since it yokes together one word with a clearly Islamic and another word with a clearly Hindu frame of reference.
You get that? Farishta Devlak. Farishta is not a Hindu word at all. It's Arabic, Persian, Urdu, and Devlak is definitely a Hindu word. So Bob is coming up with these phrases that combine these two religious vocabularies.
They secure a chance of descending and coming down to the world only after 4 cycles or yugas. They enjoy the greatest happiness, yet still they crave for a body. And this, the last subdivision in figure 36, is the state known as Untitled, or inner knowledge, which constitutes the third part of the third sky, and which is practically the same as the third plane proper. On the third plane, through the experience of this Atar-Jnan, or inner knowledge, what can one do?
Antargyan no anubhav lai no shu kari shake. And let's see, after experiencing inner knowledge, what can one do?
Okay, there we are. That chap on the first plane that we were speaking about earlier can read the minds of others near him but the adept of the third plane can read the minds of all, wherever they are located, and whenever he likes, even the minds of those far, far off. The chap on the first plane can read the minds of ordinary worldly people, but this fellow on the third plane can see everyone, even those on the first and second planes, and the 3 parts of the third sky, though the fourth plane and the minds of those on it are beyond his field of vision. The first plane chap can see any part of the gross world, but the third planer can see the subtle world as well. We have arrived at last at the great stumbling block that is the fourth plane. From this high plane, many have fallen all the way back to stone. All the way back to stone state. You will recall the simile given on an earlier day of a fast-moving motor car turning topsy-turvy as it speeds into a sharp curve. This circumstance and its peril are alluded to in the Persian couplet.
I wonder, Fareshte, are you?
Yeah, I'm
if
trying
you
to
could
get it
read,
on mute. Yeah.
you can read that.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
در آستان جانان از آسمان میندیش که از اوج سربلندی افتی به خاک پستی.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That is, we're going down.
And yeah. Okay, you want to read this translation? This is the literal
Literally,
translation.
yes, literally, the Persian couplet could be translated, when you are at the threshold of the beloved, do not think from the sky, because you may very well fall from the heights of glory to the dust of low existence. This text is quoted from Odsi, page 605, Ghazal 538, couplet 4. In fact, the source manuscript applies a different Hafez couplet, the third couplet in this ghazal rather than the fourth, which seems to have been done in error. For a detailed discussion, we see associated endnote.
Fareshte and I spent a long time hashing this out.
Yeah.
That is, at the threshold of the beloved, take care at the sky of the fourth plane, lest from the pinnacle of the highest state you tumble all the way down to the lowest state the lowest in the state of dust. Here the 7 cities or occult powers come under one's command. One can even revive the dead. But if he uses these powers and performs miracles, he tumbles all the way down to stone state. Avoiding this is not easy, since these powers or cities exercise a tremendous charm, tempting one toward their use. So now the session is up. We have no time to proceed further. We will continue with descriptions of the 4th, 5th, and 6th planes and their associated skies tomorrow. But remember, as usual, all of this is a mere dream. Svapna. Only these 3 things are true: God, the Sadguru, and love. So get these 3 things, and toward that end, create love.
Thank
Okay.
you, Melissa. Wow, we got through 2. Very good.
And we still have time, huh?
We
So
do. Yeah, I
now
think
we're doing the movement into the next year, 1928, and this was the big day
and we're gonna have,
in the history of the Mir Ashram, Prema Ashram.
we're gonna have Jim read.
Okay. This, the first day of the Christian New Year, and the 52nd day of Baba's fast was, as Chanji writes in his diary, a red-letter day for Mehrabad, particularly for the Meher Ashram. What made it remarkable was the very visible and audible outbursts of love for Shri, as the entire student body burst into uncontrollable weeping that continued for hours. This marked the beginning of a whole new phase in the life of the Meher Ashram. The moment that Baba started his lecture, however, all of the boys fell silent and listened with rapt attention. In fact, Baba alluded to what was happening among the boys as at the very end of this talk, encouraging the flow of love, but emphasizing obedience first. Yesterday, we finished up our review of the third plane and said something about the fourth as well. Specifically, we noted that the advanced pilgrim who climbs as high as the fourth plane acquires powers, siddhis. In Persian, this plane is referred to as the Astan, Umbar in Gujarati, while the corresponding sky is designated as an Asman. Astan means threshold, and Umbar means the same. The footnote would be down here. Let's see.
Yeah.
There we go. Probably Baba was repeating and accentuating these two words for threshold, one in Persian and one in Gujarati, for the benefit of the Persian and Gujarati constituencies among his Meher Ashram student audience. The advanced pilgrim who successfully crosses over the fourth plane is safe, but if he uses his powers, he tumbles all the way down to stone form. On this point, see the lines in Persian quoted in yesterday's explanation. We also saw that the chap in the first plane can read the minds of those near him. The chap in the second can read the minds of those away from him. And the chap in the third plane can read the minds of those anywhere in the gross world, and beyond that, even the minds of those in the first two planes. But the chap on the fourth plane, who is our subject now, is capable not only of reading the minds and thoughts of those on the first, second, and third planes, but beyond this, he can influence and control the minds of others, even those in Indrapad. He uses the spirits in the second part of the third sky, that is the angels of Farshta Devlok. He even gives orders to them, these angels or Farishtas. He can compel these spirits of heaven and hell. I'll need help with that one.
Behesht dozakna farishtao. So this is Gujarati. Angels of heaven or hell. Want to read the rest of that note?
Let's see.
Can you read?
Yeah. Construed literally, the source 10 text seems to indicate that these angels, whose native station is the second subdivision of the third sky, have a relationship to heaven and hell, which, as we have seen, are located on the second plane. The source text on which this inference is based cannot be read with complete confidence, however. For details, see associated endnote 2 on page 605.
Yeah, that would seem to imply that maybe some of the devils or angels that you see in heaven or hell are actually some of these spirits from here.
Wow. He can compel these spirits of heaven and hell to enter a dead body, thus reviving it. But if he uses the powers of these cities, and he does use them, if he has no guru or murshid, he is doomed to be hurled all the way down to stone state. Footnote, literally, this sentence seems to indicate that yogis and other advanced pilgrims traveling without a master invariably misuse their powers and fall back to stone state. A similarly pessimistic assessment appears in Baba's Tiffin lecture to the Mandali on 30th August 1927. See Tiffin Lectures, page 400, and associated note 7 on page 586. One should bear in mind that Baba was trying to warn the Meher Ashram boys of the dangers associated with the powers of the plains. And Baba's amnuensis, I don't know that word.
Amanuensis, that's his
Amanuensis,
scribe.
okay, probably took down his remarks in this spirit. One doubts whether the supervised spiritual pilgrims' prospects are really as drastic as this statement indicates. For the reaction of these powers is so great that they force him all the way back. Indeed, what he has acquired on the fourth plane is Gupta Jnana, secret knowledge, and it must be kept Gupta, secret. If it remains Gupta and hidden, all is well. Sorry about the dogs. But if this knowledge is manifested, if it is exposed and given out by being openly used before others, it precipitates a tremendous reaction in which the forces of all the acquired powers throw the user, as said, all the way back to stone form. As we have seen. Okay.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to give you a break here. Yeah.
Good. All right.
All right. Diana, would you pick up, please?
As we have seen, the first plane has 3 divisions, the second plane has 2, and the third 3. But the fourth plane has only 1 part or division. Further, the sharp curve in the spiritual path that we have referred to previously begins from this juncture, the fourth plane. Here the city or sky is nearer to the station or plane than previously. Now, we saw that those who leave the station and plunge into the city get engrossed in the pleasures of city life and consequently miss the train. This stops them from progressing further spiritually, since the enjoyment of the pleasures of the city makes them forget their original aim of proceeding by the true path, which in our analogy we have compared to the railway which moves from station to station. But as we will see, after arriving on the 6th plane, the spiritual pilgrim no longer risks getting set back or lost, because the plane and sky, the station and the city, are extremely close to each other at that culminating stage of the spiritual path. So we have finished with the subject of the 4th plane. We shall now begin with the 5th. The 5th
A little bit slower, Diane, okay?
Okay. The 5th plane, or strictly speaking, the sky of the 5th plane, is called the Alame Asrar, or the world of secrets. This is the Bhumika,
Bhumika, yeah.
Bhumika of Atmajnana, the plane of self-knowledge. Remember, oh, do you want me to read this?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Atmajnana means knowledge of oneself, self-realization. The word Atma appears to be used in a reflexive sense to refer to one's own personal self. The compound does not denote knowledge of the true Atma or soul.
So this isn't real self-knowledge. This is just knowledge of the regular old self.
Okay. So
Did I do the?
Oh, sorry.
Let me see. Did I do this right?
No, you skipped a page there. or
I
something.
skipped a page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Now you're back too far.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I forgot there's the facing page has, yeah, okay.
So remember, the third plane has Antarjnana, the fourth plane has Guptajnana, and now we find that the fifth plane has Atmajnana. This fellow on the fifth plane not only retains all the powers of the fourth plane, but in addition, he knows God, the Antarjnani of the third plane is called Kod Shanas, while the Atmajnani is known as Koda Shanas.
Notice that Baba is correlating Hindu with Islamic vocabulary here. And maybe this note is worth reading.
The Persian participle shanas means knowing. It is based on the infinitive form shanaktan, to know. Kod means self, while koda means God. Thus, the passage is engaged in wordplay with kod shanas, meaning self-knowledge, and koda shanas, meaning God knowing, in the sense of knowing God.
This is wordplay that happens a lot in Persian and Urdu literature.
I'm at the asterisk, right?
Yeah.
The fifth plane marks the plane of marifat, or knowledge. A chap on the fifth plane is also designated as Arif in Sufism, or Jankar, that is, one who knows. And the footnote reads, derived from Arabic, Arif means a wise man or a holy man. An Indic word, Jankar, means one who is acquainted or informed or familiar. As Meher Baba explains in God Speaks, the fifth plane encompasses that aspect of mind associated with thought.
So again, Baba is correlating the Sufi and Hindu vocabularies. Notice this wouldn't have been common, especially back at that time. These are different universes, the Hindu Vedantic yogic world and the Sufi worlds.
He has escaped the imprisonment of the entire series of forms of evolution from stone to human.
Let's see what this says.
And the footnote reads, Baba's point seems to be that the fifth plane Arif is no longer trapped in the gross consciousness associated with these gross forms. Naturally, a fifth plane saint, when incarnate, has a human form in the gross sense. The text should not be construed to mean that he has discarded it. But as he is only a knower of knowledge, but has not yet become one with knowledge, he is able to grasp. Would you read that, please?
Graha kari shakeche.
only a portion at a time of that Anant Gnayan, infinite knowledge. Again, this fifth plane chap can do all that an advanced adept of the fourth plane can do, but he never does it. He never uses his powers. Not one such example has ever been known to occur. Why not? Let us see. This fellow we are speaking of knows God, and he knows full well that all that happens does so in accordance with the law of God. So he never tries to change, interfere with, or influence God's work. He never raises the dead, though the power for this indeed he has, but he never uses it. Only a Sadguru can break the law of God, since he is one with God, who is the lawmaker. Jesus, Shams, and others raised the dead. And of
Yes.
Shams, the footnote reads, Shamsi Tabriz from 1185 to 1248, the spiritual master of Jalal al-Din Muhammad Rumi. According to a well-known story, Shams once raised a king's dead son back to life, but since the language with which he did so implied heresy, he was subsequently flayed alive. They didn't fall as a result of doing so because they were one with God. In short, only the advanced pilgrim on the fourth plane and God himself, as the Sadguru, can do miracles. But the difference between the two is that the fourth planer, by performing such miracles, throws himself down to stone state, while the Sadguru can not only make use of these powers for miracles, but beyond this, in the process, gives a spiritual push to the world, for which express purpose he does these miracles in the first place. Now the time is up for today. The subject of the sixth plane will be taken up tomorrow. In the meantime, let me give you a few words of advice, my dear boys. I am satisfied with this state of yours. This constant crying and intense feeling of yours shows love, and this love must be increased. But when I order you to stop it, you must do so. Increase love, but also obey orders. Don't check your prem. Let it grow, but obey orders. Those who persevere and endure Tico to the last in this prem will win my grace, which means that I will make them realize me. This I have sworn. The accomplishment of this is the work of just a short period. It will not hang on and drag out through the course of life. And once the hooky is created, your work will be done all in a second. I have these powers. There's no doubt about that.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow, we got through three
we did.
rather cleanly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let me stop the recording of the reading part, and then we'll get on with some questions.